Good morning and welcome to Austin My name is Austin Okon-Akpan and I will be your host today. So today we're celebrating the World Intellectual Property Day, and this event was established in 2000 by the World Intellectual Property Organization. The essence of this event is to raise awareness on how intellectual property such as copyright, patents, trademarks, industrial designs, and what have you impact our daily life. It was also established to acknowledge and celebrate innovation and creativity, and to celebrate the important role it has played in development of the society. So, the World Intellectual Property Day is observed annually on the 26th of April, and this year's theme is titled Rich for Gold, IP, and Sports. In commemoration of this event, we at Olanwajai will be discussing the confluence between intellectual property and sports, and we'll be discussing ways to protect these intellectual property rights, and especially ways to commercialize these intellectual property rights. With us today is the brilliant Austin Okon-Akpan, who is the head of sports at Channels Television. He is also an award-winning sports producer, correspondent, and presenter. We also have other members of the intellectual property. With us today is Georgia Monu.
Hi everyone, morning.
Ephraim Ajujala.
Hi guys.
Damola Adeji.
Hi guys.
And Tomi Ulule.
Hello.
So just for our viewers, if you have any questions whatever, just type it up and put it up in the chat, and then at the end of the webinar, we'll take your questions and give you answers to it. So in order to kickstart this webinar, Tomi Ulule, could you please provide a background into the connection or the nexus between intellectual property and sports?
Thanks, Tristan. Intellectual property is the intellectual property rights embodied in trademarks, patents and designs, copyrights, and even image rights, for instance. And the sports industry is a huge multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's all sorts of players in the sports industry, from the players themselves to the fans, to sponsors, to sports equipment manufacturers, to the clubs, to the sports organizers. All the players within the industry are connected by the exploitation of intellectual property rights, because that's all we're trying to do here. And so, in terms of the connections are just, a lot. You take, for instance, Nike. Nike is one of the largest brands in the sports industry. In fact, the brand worth is about $32 billion. Yeah. And Nike's brand it involves the trademark, the marks of Nike, the logos that they use on their products and designs, and those are protected by trademarks, right? So if you look at the products that they come up with as well, specifically, and the designs, the innovation that goes into the products, those products are covered, are protected by patents and designs. So you begin to see the relationship between intellectual property and the sports industry. And if you look at, for instance, even personal brands of athletes, those are protected by trademarks, and they're also protected by image rights. And in fact, if you go further to the sporting events themselves, and when they are broadcast, they are also protected by copyright. And so intellectual property and the sports industry is actually interwoven, because at the end of the day, it involves the exploitation of intellectual property by all the players in the sports industry.
Thank you very much, Amy. And you mentioned brand image as somewhat of an IP right, yes? So, George and Moni, could you please provide insight into what exactly is image rights and how to exploit image rights?
Yes, so image rights are basically the ability for a person to be able to commercially exploit every aspect of their personal attributes. And by personal attributes, we mean everything from someone's face to their image, their likeness, their voice, even a distinctive feature on their face, including their silhouettes and insignia, their nicknames, their names, their autographs. All of that encompasses what we call image rights. And in relation to image rights that have been used recently, I'm sure majority of us would know what I mean when I do this, right? Which is, this involves boats and probably this when I do Mofara's fire, exactly. So all of those are image rights that have been exploited by these athletes, in the use of their work. And when we're talking about exploitation of image rights, and if I'm going to use football as an example, if we're talking about something like the Premier League, right? So the Premier League, they have two forms of contracts with the majority of the players. They have their standard form players contracts, and then they have a separate contract for the exploitation of their image rights. Now, clause 4 of their players' contract gives the Premier League the right to be able to enter into a separate contract with these players for their image rights. Now, internationally, what a lot of players choose to do, especially in jurisdictions where they can register their image rights, is that they either register their image rights individually or they register their image rights through a corporate vehicle. And even at times when they register their image rights individually, they at times assign the rights in their image to that corporate vehicle. So that corporate entity is the one that transacts with all these clubs and the Premier League to be able to exploit the same rights. I mean, recently, for example, someone like Lionel Messi, for example, topped the charts in terms of the player who had earned the most amount of money last year. But when it came to endorsements, it was actually Roger Federer, who made about $64 million in endorsements, which is impressive. And those endorsements would encompass everything from merchandising agreements, sponsorship agreements, endorsement deals, all around the image and likeness of a sports person. I mean, to bring it home, we're even aware, for example, JJ Okocha's recent affiliations with Bet Niger, or even Alex Iwobi and his Nike ads and his Nike endorsements. These are just to bring it home as to how even us in Nigeria we're starting to exploit our image rights within sports, which is impressive.
Okay, so what I hear is image rights is very individualistic, yes? So what happens to athletes or maybe, for example, players who are within a team?
Yeah.
So, for example, we have the different clubs and the different players. So Chivita, for example, has had Manu plastered, or the entire team plastered on their products.
Yeah.
And even bringing it back home, we have, the Wilfred and the Leicester.
Yeah.
We have them on the Coca-Cola products as well. So in terms of image rights, how does that work if a player is within a team?
I mean, so what FIFA have advised actually is that they have something that they call the individual's image rights and something that they call the collective image rights. So what would happen is that either the players in their individual capacity, like I explained earlier, or through their corporate vehicle would transact with the clubs, for example, and it's all based on contract. And depending on the terms of their agreement, they can decide that, okay, they will allow the club to be able to use their image in their individual capacity, or even as a team, a collective right, when they are, for example, doing promotional ads with all the players involved. And when it comes to payments and royalty distribution, depending on, I guess, the commercial buying power that player has, even as a collective right, they can negotiate that their royalties will be higher than others. For example, you can't have someone like David Beckham or someone like Ronaldo, exactly, or a Messi in the same league as some of these other players, even though they're all part of a collective team.
Okay. So what happens in the event that a player leaves a team to another team? Because I recall when a fan walked up to Ronaldo after he had left Real Madrid for Juventus and brought him a Real Madrid jersey to sign. So what happens when a player leaves one team to another team?
I mean, so typically what would happen is that there's something called sell-off rights. So it happens for whatever product that we're talking about. If we're talking about Coca-Cola we're talking about an advert that has all the players. It's all down to the commercial agreements between the players and the team. What would happen is that the club would have a limited period within which to be able to use the advert post when the contract with the club has expired or has been terminated. And in the land of merchandising, what I find quite interesting is that in the event that a player contract has terminated or has expired, the club has like maybe a maximum rather of about 3 months to be able to still use the same merch that has that player's face, that player's letters or numbers exactly for a limited period of time. But that's only subject to the fact that the last 2 terms of the contract, they're only allowed to manufacture up to the maximum aggregate amount that they had in the last accounting period. So it limits the ability for the club, for example, to overcompensate by, spilling out a lot of merchandise and products, irrespective of the fact that the player is no longer there. Yeah.
So let's bring it back home, Austin.
Yeah.
So in your experience, in the industry, do you think that Nigerian athletes or players capitalize or try to do you even think they know what it is, what image rights are, or try to exploit them?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. Listening to me and Judith just brought it to the open that we don't understand intellectual property. And it's down to the basic fact that we don't even package. So when you look at the league, for instance, go to the basics, infrastructure is poor. So you start wondering, so before Cristiano Ronaldo became Cristiano Ronaldo, he had so much love and respect for the club called Manchester United. First, he loved the club he wanted to sign for. Even before then, he was like the Red Devils.
Yeah.
You see how they brand.
Yeah.
He knows Old Trafford.
Yeah.
So his agent is telling him, look at this club you are going to. It's already made. So when you bring it back home, we find out we don't package. And the major problem is because most of these clubs are state-owned. So the government most times use them for propaganda. So the only time you get to hear about Kano Pillars, maybe when they win the league, and then the state government probably hasn't done anything for the whole year. And I say, okay, let's host Kano Pillars. Let's bring them out. So they don't even understand what it takes to have replica jerseys. And that's why that local trader in Aba will say, people follow him back. The club is not doing anything, to make this club know. So let me start selling their shirts. And they will go and stand by the gate of the stadium. And as they are passing, they just show up and selling it for peanuts. Just because the clubs aren't branded for business. It's just a basic problem with big sports business in the country. And it's not just from the state government level. It is down to even the players, because some of them are seeing football as a means to get out of poverty.
Of course.
And that's a big problem. Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, from babies, the parents are going to play football because they were in an environment that was already thriving with football.
Of course.
So right there, they already know what they're doing with business. So she was talking about Roger Federer. We've been near Roger Federer forever.
Yeah.
And he's still making money. Tiger Woods, we thought he was there. 15 years after winning the Masters, he's back. And Tiger is back. That means endorsements will start coming.
Of course.
First thing first, golf is branded to be an elite sport.
It is
big. So what I would be talking Tiger for 20 years, and other persons are playing golf and are doing so well. Think about it. That if you bring everything back now, so we talk about trademarks, the FIFA World Cup. There was a time it was just the World Cup. Now it's FIFA World Cup. Now it's FIFA World Cup TM. Wow. So you see, every day they're thinking about ways that are going to make intellectual property useful. We don't have that in this country, and it's a major problem. So let's take Kelechi here in Achel, for instance. God has blessed this country with talents.
Of course.
So you say you're young, and then a club in Ajax is saying, come to where you play youthful football. And your dad, that is your agent, is saying, no, you want to make money. Go to where you will make money. So first thing first, nothing about it will brand him for him to become a star. Sex Fabregas started at the same level with Messi at Barcelona. But his family said they wanted to brand him. So they said you should go and do internship at Arsenal to make so much money. Because they knew that it wasn't going to be bigger than Lionel Messi. At that point, they were thinking about brand value. They were thinking about business. So because he was young, he went to Arsenal, he gathered experience, became a business brand, and came back to Barcelona. Barcelona made money out of him again and sold him to Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea made money out of him, and right now he's in Marseille.
Yeah.
And he's still playing football. So it is the knowledge, and that's why we're here. And that's why we should be doing this more. You guys are experts. You should put it out there so that people will understand that it's not just about intellectual property, it's about you branding yourself for business.
Yeah.
So until government hands off, in South Africa, it is 70-30. Private sector 70. I was telling you guys how you say South African club jersey, and you count 5 brands.
Yeah.
But we can't do that here because Aqua United is owned by Akwa Ibom State Government. So we have just 3 private clubs.
Yeah.
And those private clubs, because of the business environment, they're not branded and placed for value. So this man starts struggling to pay his club. And your players start leaving to canopilas where they know that it's so much. That's the problem, guys.
Okay, so let's talk about protection of image rights. So tell me, in terms of legal framework or protecting image rights in Nigeria, so what are the legal frameworks or structures in place to protect?
So basically, unlike trademarks where you have a statute, image rights doesn't have a statute and a codified law protecting image rights in Nigeria.
Wow.
In some other jurisdictions, you have codified statutes, but in Nigeria, we don't have. Nevertheless, there are still certain protections from other laws that you can get for image rights specifically. And in that sense, look at, for instance, the Trademark Act. Under Trademark Act, you see some athletes who go and register their name in relation to certain trademarks for provision of goods and services. And people like LeBron James, people like
Tiger Woods,
they've done that, and they've exploited their trademark for the purpose of making money, right? And so you can do that, and obviously it gives you exclusive rights to use that name. Another thing too, but the problem with trademarks is that it is not. You have to do it in relation to specific goods and services. So it doesn't just endure ordinarily. However, an interesting thing in trademarks under the trademarks regulation is that the trademarks registrar has a right to prevent somebody else from registering a trademark that has the name or representation of someone, right? Without the consent of that person. So for instance, Camel Wanko, somebody goes, and Nigerians are they don't waste time. Before you know it, you see pure water, Camel Wanko, pure water. They don't waste time. And so, for instance, someone can actually take that trademark, put JJ Okocha, and take it to the registry that he wants to register it to business. Meanwhile, JJ Okocha has nothing to do with it. And so in that instance, the registrar is actually supposed to tell the person, look, go and bring the consent of JJ Okocha before I register this trademark. He has an obligation to do that, or it is at his discretion. And so, a lot of IP practitioners like us, when we advise clients, we tell them, look, we are able to even carry out watch services for you, so that if anybody is attempting, because these marks are going to be published before they are eventually registered. So if anybody is attempting to register a mark or a name or representation of somebody else that is a known sports person, we can go to the registry and say, no, this shouldn't happen. And so that's a way for you to protect your image or your likeness under trademarks. And where the person is not registering the trademarks, you have passing off. And passing off is about, you have goodwill in your product, and you're trying to prevent someone else from exploiting that goodwill to their own advantage. And it's a common law remedy. And so the law has also extended it to false endorsement. So when, there's any false endorsement claim, meaning that someone is saying, I'm selling these goods and maybe Tiger Woods has approved it. You can bring a claim under passing off to say, look, this person is using that product and using my name and my representation falsely, and you have a right against that person under passing off. Then we have privacy laws as well. Privacy in the Nigerian Constitution, protects the right to privacy of every citizen. So you can come under privacy laws. You have advertising codes. I know you may know some one or two things about that. Under the advertising codes, the code actually provides that a person's name and likeness and image shouldn't be used without his consent to endorse any product. So there are laws here and there that try to protect,
One's image rights.
Image rights, especially in the sports industry. But the point is, getting people aware and making sure that they're able to enforce those rights. Because if you don't do anything, guess what? They're going to exploit your name and your likeness.
Whether you
for
like
free,
it or not.
without any economic compensation to you. Meanwhile, you could have collected a fee you could have collected a fee to allow that person to use your name and likeness. So that's what we have in Nigeria.
So further to what Tony has said about the legal frameworks in place in Nigeria. So I understand that under the Copyright Act in Nigeria, so a photographer, someone who takes a picture, automatically has copyright in that picture taken.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that with image rights? How do you reconcile the fact that the photographer, the person who takes, so imagine on the field, somebody takes a picture of Ronaldo. So that photographer has copyright in that picture. So how do you reconcile that with Ronaldo's image rights or?
Interesting to know that rights in pictures taken are vested in the person who takes it. So Austin on TV, Austin doing his sport things. I take your picture. That picture, the copyright in that picture is for me. I can do whatever I want with it. Now, but there's a thin line between ownership of intellectual property rights and pictures taken and exploitation of those pictures. Now, at that point, we may begin to cross into the realm of image rights. Now, so the moment if I'm reporting, saying one of the players for Kano Pillars did this on pitch, a little bit all right. But the moment I have, say, a magazine and then I'm profiling players and then I'm selling and then I'm making a lot of money, that means I'm beginning to exploit the images of those players for commercial purposes. Now that is image right. It takes me altogether away from copyright. Now for me to do that, I have to seek consent of those people or have some form of contract with them saying this is what you get when I explore. Otherwise, I find myself in a bigger lawsuit and then I may have to pay even bigger for what I would have paid if I then entered into a proper contract. So, put shortly, it's copyright when you own property, but when you begin to explore its image rights and you have to consult or seek approval or have the necessary arrangements before you begin to explore.
So if you can't take my picture now, as a franchise
we may have to talk about that back door, but if you give me some money, I may have to make some money before I come back to you.
And it's also funny. So why you take my picture, for instance, while I'm on TV doing my thing, and I don't have a problem with it. Channels TV might have a problem with it.
Yeah. Because even Channels TV, as a broadcasting outfit, has copyright in that picture. Yes, because Section 1 of the Copyright Act recognizes broadcast as one of the works eligible for copyright. And one of the exclusive rights that the Act vests in a broadcasting outfit by Section 8 of the Act is the right to control the taking of still photographs of broadcast. So you as a person, you as Austin might not have an issue with it, but Channel TV has copyright in that picture.
So invariably, it would also mean that a club or a club, for example, might have issues with you just taking the pictures of Ronaldo for whatever it is, because at some point also it would mean that maybe by virtue of contracts that Ronaldo has with the contract, of course, has the right to explore certain things in relation to Ronaldo's images. And so if you just took the picture, the club, even if Ronaldo doesn't have a problem with it, the club may have some grudges because you might be depriving the club of some.
Yes,
revenue.
Depending on the contract.
Okay, so it's interesting that you mentioned that, if I take a picture of you, Channel TV will have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So I was going to reply to what you said about, getting consent before you use somebody's image. So in the event that you want to use that image for news purposes, because surely you can't expect that all news outlets out there have to contact the various outlets to use their images for news purposes. So in that instance, will newspaper outlets require consent from the player to post anything?
Interesting. I'm sure Austin would have some perspectives on this, but whilst you may not be able to seek consent to use someone's image in relation to news reportage for sport, there are other implications. If you're putting my picture on a news page and then you're reporting me in a bad light, we may be crossing into the realm of thought.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're saying, oh, okay, when I was playing, oh, I missed a shot, and then you said, well, I have a history of missing shots, and then I am a terrible,
Terrible
it's news to you, right? Maybe it's even news, but you're maligning my reputation. Now, so the law of thoughts actually, I mean, once we're moving away a little bit from intellectual property rights, well, it's my image, and then that actually gives me what you may call locus standi to actually sue you for defamation in thoughts and all of that. So in exploiting image rights, even copyright, we have to be sure not to cut into the aspect of law that may even cause us more damage, like thoughts and defamation. But interesting, I mean, it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, and that's the problem we face a lot when we get to the field, because I'm accredited to come for this event, and I'm a photographer, and I'm taking pictures. But you, the player, did something wrong, and then you were issued a red card.
Okay.
Now, because a lot of people don't understand intellectual property and talent management in this country, that's why we don't get most of this. I remember one match, Cristiano Ronaldo, when was the man you went to clap to the referee, I think Mike Dean, and he was shown a red card.
Yeah.
So Daily Mail showed when he was clapping and when Mike Dean gave the red card.
Yeah.
His management company sued Daily Mail for using that particular picture.
Wow.
That it didn't speak well of Cristiano Ronaldo. But that was our Daily Mail.
But that's what happened.
Thank you. You see, that's the problem that we suffer in journalism.
There's a defense to that kind of action, and it is truth. So defamation, right? A defense of defamation is that if you are speaking the truth, then you can have a solid defense.
Yes.
So I guess.
How did it go through?
Yes.
We'll let you know.
It will be nice to see the outcome of that.
Exactly. So because they know Cristiano Ronaldo is a big brand, so Manchester United might back off because they know what he did was wrong. But by the way, no manager will come out there and say Cristiano Ronaldo did something. It was moved by emotion because they will speak for their client. But it's bad news that sells.
Yeah.
That was a bad picture. And it was Cristiano Ronaldo. So at that point, I don't think that I'm doing anything wrong. Because one, if I get to court, I'll say I was accredited to come and shoot that.
And this is what happened.
And I shot actualities.
Yes, of course.
It's Cristiano Ronaldo. So the management, they were saying that it was reporting what had already gone and presenting Cristiano Ronaldo in bad light.
No.
Yeah. But these people just come up with all sorts. So for instance, in Nigeria, because they don't understand intellectual property, and most of them know how talent. So I just go there because I'm accredited. I begin to shoot all of them because I know this local star can become Man U tomorrow.
That's right.
And then someone wants to not tell a story. And because he doesn't have anything guiding his image, as you said, we have image, right? I sell all these pictures to Man U tomorrow. I say this was how it started. Someone wants to do a documentary and sell it to them, and I'm rich.
Yeah.
Just like that, because it's 100% ownership that I have to his pictures.
Yeah.
In fact, even the league management company, they're not even asking. So in Senate client, like when we go to cover, I've been to Wembley, so they tell you, shoot here, shoot here, shoot here. They know where to keep you. That no matter how you zoom, you'll never have a good picture. Right?
Yeah.
Because they've sold rights to different persons. And for photographers, after you finish shooting, they call all of you and say,
And ask you to see the pictures. Yeah.
Not like they're infringing. It's what you agree to before they give you accreditation.
Yeah. So I just wanted to pick on that accreditation. So are you saying that me as a photographer, I can't just go to the field and start shooting?
No,
I have to be accredited.
You have to be accredited.
So you take us through the accreditation.
So it might coming up, let's use a local league game. Enugu Rangers versus Akpan United is going to be in Enugu. There's a league management company. So the league management company can say, get accreditation through your local sports association. So we're under the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria. So you write to them, you call somebody, and they give you accreditation every time. So the accreditation is divided into different zones. For instance, if you are a photographer for still pictures, they can put you behind the goalpost. For me, that is TV. I might be on one side of it because I'm going to be moving cameras. So they know where they've kept you to take a particular picture. So if I put you in the middle of the pitch, I know the angle where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So the league management company tomorrow, because they have exclusivity, they can show where the accreditation they give you, they know. So maybe at the point of shooting, you moved. So that's why they will question you. But it's no big deal where we do it. They don't do it because we know that
We can get
No control.
It is not a big deal because
those silver in those IP rights. Yes.
exactly, and again, that is one of the challenges or the problems faced by sports organizers, that is the leagues and all that, because copyright in itself does not subsist in a live sports event. So there's no copyright in a live sport event. So what sport organizers do is to arrange via contract accreditation with people that want to take pictures, or they just sell broadcasting rights to media companies. So, and it is for the broadcasting rights, it is for the broadcasters to now then sell to downstream operators like DSTV and the likes.
Sorry, let's follow up on that.
Okay.
So you rightfully mentioned that, there's copyright in broadcasting.
Yes.
So I just want to understand that for a second. So imagine restaurants and bars that basically sell drinks, and then people come there to watch the match. So are you saying that they might be interfering or infringing any copyright whatsoever?
Well, operators of bars, restaurants are able to do this. Well, I will speak from two angles. One from the IP perspective, then from the general legal contract perspective. Well, sports broadcasts, they do broadcasters. They have purchased media rights or right to broadcast from organizers of the sports. So generally, they are entitled to make money from this by selling to local TVs and all that. So when bars, restaurants, and in a bid to attract more customers, show these matches, they are infringing rights. They are leveraging on the investment unfairly invested by this sports by broadcasters who have purchased this media rights. However, in copyrights, the broadcasters do not have rights over the events.
Okay.
But they can, in other crimes, there is what we call alt news doctrine. Alt news doctrine speaks to the fact that when you have expended materials in purchasing news or current affairs events, and if another person uses this to make money without your permission, you have the right to proceed under the thought of unfair competition. So bars and restaurants can be liable under other areas of law, like contract, like torts, but in under copyright law, they are fine.
But can I ask though, actually, because on the topic of bars and clubs, right? In other clients, for example, in the UK, most bars and clubs that actually show these sports channels would have already purchased license.
Well, some of them purchase license. In Senate clients, they purchase license.
Yes.
But I don't think in Nigeria such arrangements occurs.
You know, those are little kiosks around the road and things like that.
That's a valid point, guys, because before DSTV got the last APR rights, remember the time was HITV?
Yes.
And HITV was so mad because there's so many viewing centers.
Exactly.
And they said that they had paid so much money to get this right.
How is it that?
Half these viewing centers just go and they collect money from people. And sometimes you go to viewing centers, hundreds of persons there, you know. It's difficult now with the internet. So if you find out now, your people are not even going to the viewing centers, they're going to the best.
Just watch it.
You know, just go to the best. But for us in broadcasting, we can't even try it. For example, you'll never see Man U, Chelsea, or Arsenal channels TV because those are territorial rights, and we broadcast in the UK. So it is not the same right holder for Africa that has a right in the UK.
Of course.
So while we are streaming that, thinking that because we're in Africa, you that owns the rights in the UK, you say, wait a minute, this guy is where are they from? And then you go and check Africa, and they're showing the EPL, and you go and check what about the biggest TV station, you'll sue. You'll sue, you know. So we just keep away from it, and just use pictures from our wire services like Reuters, AFP, what they send to us, we use. Now we know that we're paying somebody. So if you come tomorrow and tell us that we're infringing your right, we bought it. We bought it from this guy, So, but now it's very tough because the rights are getting big, and that's why you guys should keep telling people about IP, because some people don't understand it. So one guy just needs a picture of Ronaldo. Google, see Ronaldo. Plenty pictures just pop up. And you're like, wow. He just starts speaking. But he doesn't understand. But for those of us in broadcast media, because of the sensitivity of visuals, we know that we just can't jump on anything,
But I find it interesting that you mentioned that story to say off the back of that, because we've had clients in the past that have come to us who had gotten funding from various banks here and abroad to be able to purchase the license to be able to air, for example, the World Cup when the World Cup was around. And unfortunately the deal kind of fell through because one of the major backers had pulled out of the deal. But it was something that they were really excited about because they were about to buy the rights to be able to actually air majority of the huge sports programs going through during that period here in Nigeria. So, I mean, just to say that it costs a lot of money for a lot of these TV channels and these broadcasters to be able to purchase the rights. What would have happened?
The banker would have gone to do more research because they're giving money. And for instance, people don't know that you can own a broadcast rights to just show the match and clean your hands. You don't have any business with it. This guy might have the highlights right. This guy has the archive rights. So after it's finished, and you find out that this guy has even paid so much because years after you go to him to go and look at the World Cup of 1994. So this guy that just wants to air it in Nigeria is forgetting that it's just airing, and the bank is not seeing value in it. So the World Cup is 1 month after the 1 month.
I actually hold the view that in order to sustain investment in sport broadcast, our laws need to be overhauled, because we cannot just follow this English doctrine and this Australian doctrine that there's no copyright in coverage in live sports. It is really unfair to broadcasters, because broadcasters play a huge role in sports development, transmission of the event, enriching fan experience, and even attracting sponsors. For example, the local organizers of the Rio de Janeiro Olympics in 2006, they made 90% of their revenue from broadcast. So they play a crucial role in sports development. They should be compensated. At the WIPO level, today is World Intellectual Property Day. One of the front-burning issues in WIPO is how to beef up or how to enhance the international legal regime for the protection of broadcast rights. The International Convention for, which is the Rome Convention for the protection of broadcast, was ratified in 1961. It is outdated, and they want to see means of giving additional coverage or rights to broadcasters, because they play a lot of role, they invest a lot of money, and they should be compensated.
But interesting that you mentioned that, because I know that for someone like Austin, who's been to about 2-3 World Cups, it would have to be a major challenge. I mean, whilst there are different players in the value chain who want to, exploit certain rights, how then do you, for these many players, and let me use the word infringers, how do you ensure that, well, if you have invested so much in this event, you don't, what are the practicalities so that you may have seen in your...
It's all because the brand keeps growing, keeps getting better. When he was speaking, I like it because I'm a broadcaster. Yes, we're showing people, we're letting fans sit in their sitting room, take coffee, watching.
Or some chicken.
Right. And Tommy paid so much. So Tommy is now saying the World Cup is gone, and Channels TV even started a post-World Cup program. Tommy sits in a sitting room, entering Enter, Etisalat, banks, putting money on that show. She has made small money. The World Cup has ended. I'm still making money just because I'm the broadcaster. So at the end, it's very unfair. So these rights have been fragmented in ways that nobody feels cheated. I was telling you, I went to the World Cup in Russia and I got into a room. It's not about 80-something screens.
Of course.
150 human beings standing there just watching. So
Yeah.
you in Olaniwaja, you just type World Cup on YouTube. It pings them. They have something. They ping and they're looking at you. Just want to see what you want to do with that visual.
Wow.
Someone pays for it.
What?
Yes. So they look at you. They see your IP. They put it down. They go to check. It's one small blog. She don't have money. Call YouTube if you are streaming it, block her.
Yeah, that is.
Then they wait for you. You are super sports. You have the broadcast rights for Africa to broadcast.
Only in Africa.
Africa, they now saw that you were downloading Rashidi Yekini's Bowl of 1994 because you want to do documentary. Super sports. Yeah. They put it down and they're coming after you. So that's the problem. So everything comes down to contracts. And as I said, that's why we must keep telling people, because a lot of people don't know. So someone says, I saw it on YouTube now, so on screen I put courtesy YouTube. Yeah, right. YouTube is just the channel. So in terms of the practicality, it's even difficult for people that even understand right. So most times you see me, I tell my guys, let's check again. Someone's telling me, Austin, I had the fight in the UK. I'll just send it to you. No, write me a mail saying you are giving it to me. Attach the video. I was like, I can't just take it from you on WhatsApp. Tomorrow you'll tell me when we go to call. I say, I don't have that number again. I don't use it. And I'm telling my company, see, he sent it to me.
Yeah.
So I tell you, write me a mail because that's a binding document. It has your name when you sent it, and then you attached it to me. Because so many things are happening. You might buy a right, and then it changed. You sat down with the people you bought the right, and it changed, and I didn't know what has happened to that right. But at the time you gave me, I could use it, and then Channel Still starts streaming, and then somebody in India, instead of in Nigeria, and it just goes to channelstory.com and was streaming live, and is watching it, and it pings on the person that owns it. So now you guys work with us. A picture. We're going to problem with a picture of Leon Balogun. A picture
of who?
Leon Balogun.
Wow.
Picture. Someone put it up on the internet. Just a picture, and the guy just saw it online. That was it.
Wow. So, Damola, could you just sum up by telling us the other challenges that are in broadcasting, IP challenges? Because I was reading up and I found out about signal piracy. So could you please enlighten us as to what?
Yes. One of the major challenge confronting sport broadcasting business is signal piracy. And especially in a very, very big sporting event like Olympics, and I know Austin will be able to speak to this as well. Okay, local organizers, the LOCs, they sell multiple rights over various events, because in a sports event like Olympics, many sports are happening simultaneously. So broadcasters purchase these signals, and they are expected to have exclusive rights over them. So, but signal pirates intercept this signal and then route it, broadcast it without authorization from those who have invested money in purchasing these rights. So with this, it constitutes a disservice to broadcasters. So it's tapping of signal and broadcasting it, making it available to the public without the authorization of the broadcasters.
That's very awkward, because your example about the Olympics, there are different games and events going on. So if you are intercepting it and showing it, airing it, even before...
Exactly, even before the purchaser has the opportunity of broadcasting it.
Do you know, this is a new angle is just even telling me now, because I couldn't get accreditation to the last Olympics.
Okay.
And that's because of this regional rights thing.
Yeah.
So now I say I want to stay with the Nigerian long jumper. And the Olympic people are saying, okay, why are shooting that? You say boat is warming up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what they did was they gave the rights to the local Olympic committee, which is the NOC. So if you want to now do an interview, you go to those people, they will accredit you locally there and tell you where you will stay. Because when they watch it, they want to be sure that that is where they told you to stay. You know, I didn't know that it's part of this signal. And it's so true, because so many things are happening in the stadium. So I can just come, I'm shooting you that wants to jump. Meanwhile, I'm using this side to look at you, say vote. So I just pan.
You know, it's very, very interesting because they know, they are aware that, okay, the controlling principle is that, look, we don't have copyright in live sport events. So they have used other means of protecting themselves, like ensuring that those who come to the pitch are accredited and they are able to film according to instructions, because they know that the copyright law is not really on their side. So they are using other means.
So do we have any legal frameworks in Nigeria?
Well, for broadcast, yes. Section 1F of the Copyright Act recognizes broadcast as one of the works in which copyright subsists. And by Section 8 of the Copyright Act, we have the exclusive rights lined out for broadcasters, that is transmission, rebroadcasting, recording of the broadcast, taking of still photographs of the broadcast, and even distribution to the public. Yes, so they have rights. Yes.
So let's go on to the almighty betting.
Oh,
So we know betting has become very, very popular, especially in Nigeria.
Of course.
Especially in Nigeria, and especially with football matches, because we know that football in Nigeria is like in the hearts and minds of almost all Nigerians.
yeah.
So in terms of betting as a byproduct of the sports industry, so what do you think are the IP implications and issues surrounding betting?
Okay, like you said, the sport industry is so big that it has created a sub-industry. It has created a sub-industry, which is the betting industry. I know we have quite like a lot of betting outfits in Nigeria, NairaBet, Premier Lotto, and the likes of them. So the IP issue majorly is whether, okay, there's this question of whether the bookmakers, that is the operators of betting outfits, whether they can use the statistics generated by, number one, the sporting leagues, and the news from broadcasts, whether they can use it without the permission of the sporting league. Let me give you an example. In the Nigerian Premier League, I know the match fixtures are generated by the league. So operators of betting, they use these fixtures to arrange their betting. And they also watch out for live scores as channels is getting it, as other TVs are getting it, to decide who wins what. And on one side, the decision of whether Enyimba will win Aqua United is controlled by the league. Like they say, okay, this is the winner and that. So sports league want to know, they want to see what they can get from revenue generated by the betting companies, because one, they use their fixtures. So
And there's copyright in the fixtures.
Exactly.
where it is debatable.
It's a publication.
It is a publication.
You put it out there.
Yes. In some jurisdictions, you can get copyright for match fixtures. For example, in the UK, in the 50s, an English High Court decided that a match fixture, that copyright subsists in a match fixture. However, in some countries, they will tell you, no, this is just a mere database. There's no artistic work. There's nothing intellectual about it. But in France, for example, and in Australia, they have been able to they have created a sort of IP rights for sports league that look, they are entitled to 1% of money made by operators of betting. Yeah. Because number one, they use their fixtures. Number two, they use the outcome of their events.
I mean, just to point out to you,
Yes.
you mentioned earlier that there is something about unfair use,
Yes.
especially because the league has invested a lot in this.
Exactly.
Now, if you're relying on the outcome of an event organized, the performances of people who signed up to me and to whom I pay money,
Yes.
there's an unfair use of such. I mean, why is there the need for law to?
You are very correct, Ephraim. There is under IP, there is no remedy, there is no right for the sports league. However, under the thought of unfair competition, the sports league can sue. They can sue the operators of bets. For example, about 4 years ago, the New Delhi High Court in India made a decision that, look, the live scores announced by a TV used by betting organizations constitute an infringement under unfair competition. So, laws are getting developed everywhere, but I think it is because operators of betting and the sports leagues and the broadcasters, they are all players in the
ecosystem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we should sit down and arrange how this should work.
Let's hear from you, Austin. What do you think?
I know, because what right is stopping me from broadcasting? That's what I have. I'm a broadcaster.
Yes.
I look for information and I throw it out there. I know of that Indian case study. Even in the English Premier League, for instance, I don't have rights to show it on my show, but Chelsea is playing Man U at the time that my show is going on. I'm looking at the 5% I was not watching the match live. So I want to be telling them, it's 10 minutes into the match now, and Manchester United has scored, and Chelsea has and then somebody's having a problem with it. It is out there. I'm saying it. I have the screen right in front of me. I'm watching it, so I can tell. But you see, it's because of people have been cheated because they see the money that's in it. And so they want to say it's because there are a lot of ways we can be wise and intelligent with IP, and that's what people have been into. So we're asking questions and we're doing. So in India, don't take live results. It's because they believe you can influence betting in some sort. So people don't just vote bet for just results now. You can bet Arsenal will get the first red card. If you can say Man U to get the first corner. So these guys are saying that these guys are just making money out of our rights and our property. But no, we have fun experience, our fans. And the good thing that these betting companies have done is they have reduced fans violence. When was the last time I read that Chelsea and Man U fans fought? Before we were abused and the fans were fighting. Because you as a Chelsea fan, you can bet that Arsenal to get first goal kick.
Exactly.
And Arsenal gets it. Psychologically, you're an Arsenal fan because Arsenal just gave you money. So it has done some good, but the person that owns the property, that's what they don't longer fight. But the person that owns the property is just saying that to like getting credibility, they're getting followership, and they're just getting bigger. So they're just
it's interesting that Damola actually mentioned something like the industry has created a sub-industry. and this is the sub-industry. And in my opinion, to be honest, if to the extent that you're still relying on outcomes of some events organized by some people, I mean, whilst we may not have common law provision or even IP laws, we may, for value proposition purposes, maybe have a statute. I mean, say even if it is 1%, I understand though the issue of double taxation of because betting companies pay certain things to federal government or to states, but we can by law work that out just to ensure that even if it is for Nigeria, because today we talk about Nigerian league is not developing. If people begin to bet on the outcomes of Nigerian league, and we are saying sports companies should go away with everything they make. But it's a disservice to this. I mean,
to the leagues.
At the end of the day, you say where lies your interest? If my interest is the footballer, then I'm saying, well, let us. But at the end of the day, we have to strike a balance.
That balance is from the.
No, it has always been an issue with their many actors with many interests. For example, the issue of monetizing names, monetizing result of betting. There are a lot of human rights activists that are saying that intellectual property is choking the human rights ecosystem, especially freedom of expression.
Interesting.
Yes, there are international conventions for the that actually allow you to access freely cultural input. We have the struggle between bookmakers, sports league, and broadcast within the IP ecosystem. We also have it in the larger society. I mean, if you don't allow me to access news, you are depriving me of my fundamental human rights.
I mean, I think we have a couple of questions actually from the public, and I think we should take a few of those questions now, just before people sign out. We have a question here from Toby Babalola, and hi Toby. You should all say hi to Toby.
Hi Toby.
So we have a question from him or her, and they're saying that is there an infringement if a person downloads a picture, puts it on a blog, and under the picture references the source? For example, photo credits, BBC Entertainment. Does anyone want to take that? Crazy.
I address that. You need to know where that picture is coming from. You see, Google lately, they've entered into so much problems, including YouTube, because people just go there and say, I got it from Google, and they say, cut to Google. Google don't own the picture.
No.
Somebody uploaded it there. So you need to check. For instance, if you go on Google, if you click on that image, it will show you the source, the website where it's coming from. Use that website to know whether they own that picture or whether they even bought it or they have the courtesy of the owner of the picture to use it. You just went online and you picked up the picture and you don't know if there are commercial value to that picture. Then you just go and use it.
Yeah.
So that's really. And if you check, if they can even try it now, just go to Google, put a picture. When you click it, you'll see at the bottom, they now put a footnote, say, this picture might have copyright laws.
Yeah.
They are trying to be safe now because a lot of people are bringing them into the picture that I got it from Google. So they are telling you now that this image might have copyright laws. So you should be sure about the picture before using it.
And I think generally speaking, like if you're able to find out who the source of the image is and you're then able to accredit the source of that image, you're safe pretty much. Yeah.
Toby also has a concern about now that we have elaborated on the wealth and riches of IP and sports, we also has the concern that we've discussed what happens in UK and Europe and how what happens in Nigeria. How can we tackle? I know that there's still a point when Austin would be able to talk about what we can do more to enjoy this, but just to let Toby know that we note your concern that you want to know how Nigeria can play more in this space for more economic benefits too.
Yeah, but Toby, don't download any pictures. Don't do it, please. I'm speaking from experience. Because it goes viral. So from Toby's blog, you read it, this person picks the picture again, so, and crime reporting has really struggled in Nigeria because somebody hasn't been taken to court or proven guilty. Someone has showed their face, and this blog takes it. This one things, and you don't even know the person is innocent, and the picture just starts going viral. If already is how do you call media trial before the person is even
found guilty in the first place, exactly.
So you're
Okay, so to sum up, so we've discussed what has been made of sporting activities around the world. So let's bring it back home. So I'd like to hear from you, Austin. So what do you think we should do in Nigeria?
we must throw out more knowledge. We should continue more of this. If on a bigger platform, let people understand that the only way IP will work properly is when we're all responsible. You know what you're to do with this. You know what you're to do with this. You ask questions. We're not asking questions of brand. Because that's terms and condition. That's why the clubs are not growing. I told you how a league match, it's just like, do you know the build-up to the El Clasico is almost as big as the match itself?
Yeah.
That's branding. I just told you how 2 big clubs in Nigeria came out to play match, no referees.
Wow.
us will come together as experts. We want to brand this league. You come, you already have persons that want to take pictures for that event. You have a client that wants to sign 2 talents for you have for archive rights, and we're all there, and the match is not over. So we need to go back.
That is the other unfortunate.
This is sad. Now, so imagine what I go through. I'm the guy that was sitting in front of TV to start telling persons that happened. So I'm even helping them not to brand. That's bad news. That's bad for the league. So bringing it back home, let's look at what those guys are doing. They respect contracts. They respect trademarks because they know what persons have done to build that brand. Look at Serena Williams and Venus Williams. You find that, look at those big brands. It's from the family they start branding them before they put them out there. So they're actually telling you how you should treat that brand. Rafael Nadal, Uncle Carlos has been his coach for like forever. So what we should do is, guys, let's make it tell ourselves that we need to start telling people more about intellectual property. We need to start telling people how to create value, not just create it, sustain that value. Teach people also how to stay out of trouble.
Yes.
Because you find out that a big brand just goes down. Kano was big until one product used him for an advert. Everybody started saying what? Papillo. Remember? Papillo.
I know say one day will make us proud.
Papillo just became big. I know him very well. He doesn't like it. But at some point, I saw the commercial value.
to embrace it.
You have to embrace it.
Because Papillo sounded local. It's a big brand. It's Kano Akpan. And it's somebody that has been there, done that, and has a foundation taking care of kids. So if I'm to brand him, I'm a PR agency, the first thing I'll say is, we can't call you Papillo.
Of course not.
But because nobody is telling him that, and everywhere it goes, Papillo, he has to take it. So we should learn how to create brands, create value, and sustain them. And I think there's so much public knowledge that we have to reorientate people, not just ordinary people, even people in the media. Some people don't understand this. I still watch local TV and I see Courtesy YouTube. You go on YouTube, you pick someone's work, you put Courtesy YouTube.
I'm sorry,
Because the guy is just giving credit to where he fits. That's the knowledge he has. But someone needs to tell him that, look, there was a channel, YouTube channel. He framed something, Ephraim kept it there, and with video you can easily track it. Because let me tell you one thing about the human eye. If you shoot a video, even with a normal phone, if you sit anywhere, you know that this is my shot.
This is my shot.
So that's what we have to do. We have to try more knowledge. Because the truth is, guys, we are the select few that understand this. Go out there and ask people what's intellectual property.
Hardly anybody knows.
Interesting that you talked about this putting things up. I remember you also mentioned something about even for the players, this time the athletes are not of them doing this sport. Some of them possibly don't even see themselves as brands, they see themselves more as products. So it's easy for them to take the peanut that the product to take rather than the long, the David Beckham, how he has become a brand and they can go on and on and on. So because
even speaking about David Beckham, sorry to interject, what was interesting when I was doing my research was that Real Madrid, right, estimated that the total cost of having David Beckham as a player working for them at Real Madrid, they were able to make all of their money back in 6 months of selling his merchandise. 6 months.
That's a brand.
As a brand. And then over the course of having David Beckham as part of Real Madrid, they were able to make profits estimated to the tune of over 137%.
So so the point is, so David Beckham is a brand, the shirt is the product.
Yes.
Exactly.
So they valued it and they looked at it like, this is what we're going to get from it. Same thing when Manchester United signed Ibrahimovic. And everyone said, we're signing this old guy. I said, no, they signed value. And they made money. It's Ibrahimovic.
Yeah.
So him just coming out for one.
Beyond the plane. It's the entire brand.
Yeah. So when we're talking, I was talking with Ephraim, why don't our local athletes make money from branding? Because first thing first, they don't even see themselves
as a brand.
Alex Iwobi, when did he start playing for Super Eagles? Is he not being branded? Because of his foundation. It was brought up in the UK. But the local player here, he just wants money. He doesn't see himself as who can give service. You give him money, take, I go, you go.
And the thing is that we actually see that problem in almost all the aspects of the media industry, or even within the sports space. You know, we're talking about a package deal, having, you know, a person as an individual, their talent being exploited, but having a total brand built around them, a team built around them. I mean, last year, slightly unrelated to sports, I mean, we were sitting down at a conference and someone had mentioned that Two-Face, for example, is a complete and utter brand. He's very clear about his marketing strategy for his music. He sits down at the beginning of every year, he gives his PR agency his marketing plan for the entire year. Quarter by quarter, they'll make their adjustments. I mean, if we start applying that same logic and strategy to many of our athletes or our sports players, there's no reason why they cannot start building themselves as a brand that will be making revenue of merchandising quality of 137%.
Knowledge. And if you check, that's the strategy Roger Federer used.
Yes.
Because he knows that these young guys are stronger, so he picks tournaments.
Yeah.
And just when we thought it was done, him and Rafael Nadal,
Yes,
they were
Nadal.
sharing the Grand Slams amongst themselves. They know they cannot start going with them Zverev and the younger guys that are coming up that can go here, go there, go. So Baba just chooses. And he goes and he wins.
Yes.
To keep the brand going.
Of course.
Because Nike would tell him, you have to play. So someone was wondering that Serena Williams was pregnant. Of course she knew, but she was on that contract. She has to wear Nike to a Grand Slam event. So she will play. But how much she didn't win, but just stepping out with Nike, they're making money.
Of course.
Yes, definitely.
So, Austin, on the last note from you, what the many sporting activities in the country, what are we doing wrong? What, like Damola would say, what are we doing wrong, or what do we not have to finally get into it? At least let's begin to exploit.
I'll just cry. We don't have the will. We have the markets. The market's always there. We don't have the will. Because, as I said, it's the government that runs sports in this country. Do you know cricket has been played in Nigeria since the late 19th century? If you went to the federal government colleges, it was bigger than football.
Wow.
If King's College was playing St. Gregory's,
Of course.
it's not students that are coming to watch. The old boys, they will pack jeeps
And then come and watch.
watch cricket.
Just like India.
Just like go to India and tell them. That's why they're trying to come more into football. But it will never be as big as that cricket. India, New Zealand, Pakistan.
So South Africa.
So they looked at their markets and said they cannot compete with England with football. But they know what they know how to do. They said in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela was trying to get everybody on board, they used rugby. They hosted the Rugby World Cup and won. And that was how rugby started becoming big in South Africa. So if you look at Nigeria now, first they'll tell you a footballing country.
True.
None of this population. It's only football. You can do other things. People are looking at it like easiest way to make money. So if it's football, if it's team sport, now with all our footballers in the last 10 years, tell me one brand we made that is bigger than Usain Bolt. And that's personal sport, that's private. Tell me one brand that we've made that is bigger than Serena Williams or Roger Federer, not team sports.
Just a individual brand.
So because we're not looking at other ways that we can develop. And we have these talents everywhere. We have young talents that are still playing cricket. We have young talents that are playing table tennis. When we're growing up, I don't know if you know the name Atonda Musa. We're not playing, it was just Atonda Musa. He was a great table tennis player. We used to have our own bats, play table tennis. But because it wasn't football, if you are by the street playing table tennis, the police will come pick you up. We lose you. So we begin to kill even the small talent that God has said we should use as a country. And that's because they don't understand how to tap into the opportunities of sports.
So tell me, any last words from you? Well,
Thank you so much, Austin.
Thank you,
It
guys.
has been a very interesting discussion, and I hope that everyone listening, has been able to take on us with them home. Yeah. So, but I think basically, from what we've discussed today, it's clear that a lot of work still needs to be done. And people need to be made aware of their rights, and that this intellectual property rights, it is a way for you to make money. This is, at the end of the day, it's about making money. It's about exploiting your rights and your creative, your image and talents to make money, and you can do that by properly harnessing your intellectual property. And a lot of things that this involves, especially when it comes to things like trademarks, IP rights, image rights, and then how to properly exploit them, your endorsement contracts. Because some people sign these contracts without, getting even legal counsel to review it, and they end up signing away their arm and a leg for peanuts when you could have negotiated better deals if you have proper representation. So, even for the little endorsement deals that you find and the little contracts that you see, you notice that people are not adequately protected because they just believe, I'm just happy that they want to, I'm happy that anybody's interested in me, ready to sign away your entire rights for nothing. And so we need to do more to be aware. We need to do more to also enforce our rights, because guess what? There are people that are capitalizing on your image rights, on your trademarks, on your intellectual property, and making money from it. And it's not getting to you, which is wrong. And so, it's important that people are aware, especially athletes and sportsmen, that these rights enjoying them and they can be exploited for commercial gain, and also ensure that they're adequately protected when they're entering into any sort of contractual arrangement, even the clubs, any sort of contractual arrangements. Ensure that your property is properly protected, it's reviewed, and your interest is protected. You are negotiating value for what you're giving away. So I think that's more or less sums up what I would say as the last
If you're in trouble,
The right trouble. Because if you bring the wrong trouble, you think you run.
We never shy away from a challenge. Never.
So to our viewers out there, thank you very much for tuning in. So you heard it all. So we talked about, how to tracing the connection between intellectual property and the sporting industry. We've talked about how to protect the intellectual property rights, and especially how to commercialize it. So, like I said, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much, Austin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We hope to see you on the same day next year, 26th of April, 2020. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.